Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Fred Packard Show. I'm your host, Fred Packard. Today, I'm joined with a very special guest. I have the one and only Frank Gogol. How you doing, Frank?
I'm doing all right, but I am not the one and only. I am actually the third,
You are the
Frank.
third.
I am. So
Really?
I'm thinking about going by FG3, but I'm not sure it's going to stick.
That's interesting. I had a friend named Frederick Garassi the third, FG3.
Probably trademarked it. I'll find something else.
Well, actually, because sadly, he passed away from a motorcycle accident, and he has a memorial run, which is FG3 run, so it might actually be trademarked. I actually went to high school with him. He was such a good kid. You got me thinking about that stuff now because I just got done reading Dead End Kids.
Yeah.
So it kind of hit home for me. So for those of you that are watching that don't know, Frank is the author of No Heroine, which is essentially, how would you describe it? Like substance abuse meets like vampires?
Like Buffy meets Tank Girl, kind of punk rock addiction story, fighting monsters.
It's pretty dope, actually. I really enjoyed the art. Enjoyed, you were mentioning before we hopped on this call, essentially some of the Easter eggs that you have in the different books that you write, which I really liked. The cover, I think, is outstanding as well. You have a way with covers, man.
It's the only part that matters. You can have a terrible inside, but people will buy a cover. It's so dumb, but it's true. No, I like covers. Some of my favorite writers, Jonathan Hickman and Rick Remender, and they always put a lot of thought into the design of their covers. Victor Santos too. So I try to make books that I like. So that's a big part of making the book for me. It also keeps me busy after I'm done writing, so I'm not sitting there doing nothing.
Yeah, I can see that you put a lot of care and a lot of love. I'm actually showing everybody your book covers right now. The first one, now getting to know these characters. I haven't read number 2 yet. I know people are itching to get a hold of this book. How many issues is it going to be?
No heroin. Three slightly oversized issues. I like 3 issues. It's less money for everybody else, and you get the story faster. So
Yeah.
that's where I was when I wrote the book.
I notice a lot of people are kind of going to that 3 to 4 issue kind of storytelling, which leaves with kind of like an open ending for certain things. Have you ever considered doing a longer series?
So I'm writing Dead End Kids 2 right now, and that's 4 issues. And then the book I'm writing after that's going to be 4 issues too. So I mean, part of it's a financial consideration on my part. Like making comics is super expensive, so if I can do a really good story in 3, it saves me money, saves people time and money on the other end of it when they're buying the book. And it's sort of a win for everybody. But also when I wrote Dead End Kids and No Heroine, which I wrote first, I was just not as good a storyteller. I didn't have the confidence to do a longer story, or that I'd be able to pull it off. I was kind of worried with these guys at 3 issues. So there are a lot of reasons. I always think of like writing as like going to the gym. Like you go and you want to bench 250, but you got to start with like that 90-pound bar or 45-pound bar or whatever it is, and then you put some weight on and you build your way up. So I started with short stories and grief, and then I did a couple of one-shots that never got put out or haven't been put out yet. And now I'm doing like 3-issue miniseries, 4-issue miniseries, and I've got stories that are 12 issues to an arc, 24 issues, but I'm not there yet.
Yeah, I saw when I met you. That's when you put out Grief, and here I'll pull this up. I know it's sold out now. I believe I'm checking SourcePoint's website right now, but
Yeah, it's
Grief was you have this idea with dark. I don't want to say dark, but like very serious, heavy stuff. Like Grief was short stories. I'll let you explain for those who haven't had a chance to pick it up yet.
So Grief is it's a short story collection. It wasn't supposed to be. It was kind of like my writing portfolio and me kind of again going and building those muscles and trying different genres and different storytelling techniques, but like on a small scale. But making comics is super expensive, and I wanted to get some of that money back, so I figured I'd start writing towards a book, and that's what ended up becoming Grief. And it's 10 short stories about the 5 stages of the grieving process, told through monster and alien and superhero stories. Each one's a little bit different, but they all kind of deal with heavier topics like addiction, which has come back up again in No Heroine, what it's like losing a loved one, having a handicapped child, mental illness, trans rights, just kind of things that have affected my life or people in my life, and needed a bigger spotlight.
That was actually going to be my next question for you. So I've noticed this trend in your writing. Like I read Grief. It was very, for people that go to conventions, I'm actually shocked. Not because it's not a good book, because it is. It's a very good book. But shocked at how well it sells for a book that's like, hey, let me tell you a book about different stories about being, grieving.
Because we're all
you know.
fucked up.
But a lot of that I think comes down to your personality, and people gravitating towards dark, heavy, serious things,
So
and also just kind of baby stepping, like you were saying. You started with the anthology book, right, and then you dropped Dead End Kids, which I'm really enjoying. Dead End Kids. I actually just ordered the trade. Got a chance to read the first issue, and it's bringing me back. So the reason why I brought up my friend Fred was because reading that, I'm not going to give any spoilers away of the story, but
it's on page 2. You can say
yeah, but I mean, well, losing a friend that you care about, in a tragic manner, is definitely not an easy thing. So I mean, and then also I'm a kid from the '90s, right? So it has that '90s nostalgia. There's certain things I know, like nuke your food. We talk about the microwave. Parents sharing a car. That was a very common theme, I think, that I noticed.
It's wild too. Like when me and Nanette were talking about the book, we didn't. A lot of the stuff that ended up being like sort of '90s era references weren't even in the script. Like the nuking the food thing. That's just what I did. Like, so that's what I knew to write. And like some of the slang they use and stuff like it was so innate. Like there's some very obvious ones like the Blink-182 lyrics and the Offspring lyrics. The like '90s sports era logos, the Devils and the Giants logos we were talking about earlier. But like most of it, I'm a pretty lean writer. There weren't that many references put into the book on purpose. A lot of it just kind of came out in the creation.
Yeah, you notice that the artists, that you told me that the artists kind of take some artistic liberties to really kind of put their flair on the story. Is that with all your books, or was that just with Dead End Kids?
I think with Grief, I was probably a little more controlling about like what the end product was, and it probably over scripted a bit on some of the stories. So I don't know how much room there was to breathe for the artists, but definitely with Dead End Kids and definitely with No Heroine, I went out of my way to write really lean scripts. Like I've got all kinds of little weird things in my script template that like stop me from overwriting. Like I tab a couple times when I do dialogue, so that way it can't go on to a second line, and like I keep every script page to one page of the document, like so that isn't over described and stuff like that. And I'm also like pretty lazy, so like if I can just write John walks into the room rather than John walks into a grand ballroom, blah blah blah, like it's just easier for me. It's just so much easier. I'm kidding, but I do like to give the artists kind of like room to breathe, because their imagination and their skills are a lot better than mine. I can tell them it's an over the shoulder shot, but if that's not the right shot or the best shot or what looks good, like I'm going to defer to them every time. So why even make it a question?
Right. I've been doing that more often. A lot of the books that I've been writing is kind of giving the creative, the artistic liberty, if you will, to less description on the art, more focusing on the actual dialogue. And letting them kind of have because they're equal creators, I feel like, in this. So it's been an interesting kind of take the foot off the gas just a little bit in certain degrees, but it's been paying off pretty well. Now, out of all your series, which one? Because I'm writing a book I'm writing right now is like by far one of my favorite stories I've ever written. Out of the ones that are published so far and about to be published, which one do you gravitate towards the most? That you would be like, okay, if you're going to read my work, check this out.
I think it's going to be No Heroine. I kind of have to see how like the finished third issue comes out. We're just about done with it. But I think that like Dead End Kids and Grief were kind of like walkways that got me to No Heroine in a weird way. And like, that was where I wanted to be as a storyteller. So it's not just a drama. It's not just a really down to earth, quiet story. It's kind of like a fuller package. Like Grief and Dead End Kids don't have a lot of action.
Right.
This book has a lot of action, and like, yeah, that's something that I thought was lacking from my storytelling style. Action, sort of up against like these quieter moments, which I did do a lot of in Grief and Dead End Kids. So like, in terms of me as a writer, the book I like most is the one that I think is the most whole, and that's No Heroine.
Okay. Now, were you a big Buffy fan? Because that's very. I feel like a lot of the stuff's coming from the '90s.
Yeah, I'd say that is probably the greatest story ever told. Like, and I know that that's not true, but it's what I think. Those are the only DVDs I own.
That's done by Josh Whedon as well, right?
Yep, yep. I know you're a big Firefly guy.
Yeah, I'm a huge Firefly guy. Josh, to me, I feel like is one of the most underrated people. And I mean, I know he's not underrated, but he's one of those guys I feel like doesn't get enough credit for all the things that he's done.
Yeah. Are you? Did you watch any Buffy?
I watched some. My buddy's brother watched a lot of it, believe it or not, and my sister watched some of it. But I wasn't the biggest Buffy guy, but I've definitely seen enough of it.
Yeah, there's a great episode, and this is going to be spoilers for like an episode that was on 20 years ago or more at this point. But Buffy's mom dies, and it's like a big season-long arc of she's sick and they don't know what's wrong, and she ends up having a brain aneurysm. And it's it's kind of like you've got this superpowered girl who can stop the apocalypse, but you throw something like that in front of her that she can't punch and that she can't do anything about. Like, what does that do to a person? Like that always. I think if any one story I've ever seen like informed how I write a book, especially grief and especially dead end kids, like that was the one.
So let me ask you this. In regards to the substance abuse theme, I did a little research because I feel like I had to, and I was actually shocked at some of the numbers I saw. 9.1% of the United States has a substance abuse problem.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's, I was even kind of shocked at that number. That's 22 million Americans. Over 22 million Americans. It's probably closer to, I mean, this is from 2 years ago, this number.
Maybe. We got 330 million people in the country. So kind of that would be three.
Yeah, but that's just documented too. I mean, just think of all the people that are doing drugs that are partying. You know what I mean? Like,
it doesn't include deaths too. Like people who are no longer with us aren't included in the statistic anymore.
Right.
It's dark.
Yeah, it is dark. So I mean, it was kind of an eye opener that 1 in 10 Americans have a serious problem that's documented, and then I mean, just being out and about and knowing, friends and whatever partying, and going to music festivals and whatever, you see things, right? So it's just like it's kind of an eye opener. Now, do you have some kind of connection to the reason why this is a kind of a theme, or is it just?
Yeah, I mean, lots of them. Growing up, both my parents struggled with addiction. My dad passed away when I was about 1.5 years old from an overdose. My stepdad, after him, was an addict as well. So, like, most of my formative years, I was like in the presence of people either using or struggling with, recovery and stuff like that. And it was like a huge, like, just turn off for me about stuff like that. And then when I got a little bit older, like where I grew up in New Jersey is pretty low rent. Like it's not an up and coming area by any means. And a lot of the kids I grew up with, including 2 of the kids who I'm very close with, who are the kids who Dead End Kids were based on, have struggled and passed away from abuse in the last couple of years. And like, it's just kind of follows me, even though like, it's not something that I've struggled with. It's been in front of me all the time.
Gotcha.
But the reason I wanted to write about it in this way is like drugs are like there's kind of like 2 views of addicts in pop culture. Like you've got 2 very extremes. On the one far end, you've got kind of this like demonized version of them, like where they're these people who don't care about anybody. They just hurt people. They steal. They don't give a shit. They just want to get high. And then on like the far other end of the spectrum, you've got the kind of like Lifetime movie take on them, where these are people who can't help themselves and they need help, and it's not their fault. They have a disease, and like both of those are kind of bullshit, honestly. Like at least from what I've seen, it's a lot of gray area. Like these people do awful things. Like I've had friends rob me and like take my car once, and I've seen my parents do shit. But I've also seen like incredibly generous things come from these people too, and I've like seen firsthand like how hard it is for somebody who's at a rehab to find a job and always be getting to probation if they can't get a car, and they can't get a car because they can't get a job. I mean, there's so much working against these people. So it's not that they're terrible or bad. Everybody is good and bad.
Well, I feel like it can't be possible for 10% of the population, like all of them, to be bad people. I mean, it's a staggering number of people.
I these days I wonder, but that's besides the point. But yeah, no, I wanted to do a book that kind of took the middle of the road. So we created this character, Kayla. She's straight up piece of shit. She's really hurt a lot of people in her life, but she's on the straight and narrow now, and she's trying to do the right thing. She's going about it like the wrong way in a lot of ways, and like kind of making things worse for herself. So like she's still not the best person, but she's trying, and like that counts for something, right? Like so it's this very middle of the road kind of decide for yourself take on the character, and lets the reader, essentially say, I think that this is a terrible person, or I think this is a good person, or I'm willing to see how this plays out. Because the end of the first issue is like just the first part. There's so much after that.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I really enjoyed it. In fact, the art, from the being with you at conventions, getting a chance to know you, I actually really there's something to be said about a more simple. Not I want to say simplistic because I think that's demeaning it because it's not. It's beautiful art. I'm saying it, but it's more straightforward art where it's very. It reminds me of the '90s, and it reminds me of that time period. And I feel like you did a really good job of pairing the artist to the story, not only in Dead End Kids but also in No Heroine. And thank you for letting me read the first issue. And I think that the ending is a solid ending as well. Not to ruin it, but I think you did a good job. So from one writer to another. Now, what were some of the challenges? Because I have even more of an appreciation for these stories now, knowing that there's some sort of history that you kind of pour. It's kind of like your outlet in a way to a certain degree. What was some of the challenging stuff that you've had to go through as a writer to be able to even get to that level where you can even, essentially put that stuff on paper and put yourself out there in that way?
I don't know that it was ever a struggle in like the I don't know how to do this or I'm stuck kind of way, but there are definitely little things along the way. Like the one thing I mentioned, like sort of writer's toolbox, like I know that I'm not a strong action writer, so that part of the scripting and all the issues kind of took me longer because I was building up those muscles. From like getting the story out, kind of I think for me, I get an idea and I sit on it for a long time. Like we were at San Diego 2 years ago, and it was you, me, Casey, and Josh, and we were sitting behind the booth, and we were joking around, just pitching stupid story ideas. And I said something like, "What if the xenomorph from Alien got loose in the Power Rangers Megazord?" And like that stuck with me. And like it took a long time, but like that turned into something. That's the next book I'm gonna write. It's not anything like that pitch, but so I had the idea for this No Heroine book for a long time, but like the elements hadn't all come together. And like the key to unlocking all of it was Chris. Chris and I go way back. We had a common comic book store that we both went to in New Jersey when I lived there. And we were both like Wednesday Warrior guys there at 11 when the store opened. And it was very much like the barbershop atmosphere. People hung out and talked shop and just got to know each other. But like I wasn't making comics then, and Chris, I didn't really know that side of him. I think you were at Great Philadelphia Comic Con with us right after C2E2, you know?
I didn't do Philly. No, I did Boston.
Okay.
I did on the East Coast. I did Boston. I did C2E2. I did San Diego. I did a bunch, but I wasn't at Philly. I want to go to Philly because that's Stan Konopka's home turf.
Yep. So it was the show after your book and my book came out. C2E2. So it was the next show the next month, and I was catching up with Chris because I hadn't seen him in a while after I moved. And we were talking, and you kind of have this conversation with artists, and they have it with you, and it's like, oh, I'd love to do something with you. Like we should definitely jam on a book. And since Chris and I knew each other going way back, like that was even like an even better reason to have that conversation. But there's only so much money to go around, only so much stories, and only so much hours in a day, right? And you kind of always leave it at, yeah, I'd love that. Like, let's keep talking. Like, let's see what happens. And it's a like a nicety. It's polite. You say it, but you mean it. Like, it's not like shitty. So that's kind of where I left it with Chris. And then I got on the plane to go home to San Francisco on that Sunday. And by the time I got off the plane at SFO 6 hours later, I'd written the first script. Like between wanting to tell a story about addiction and recovery and loving Buffy and wanting to tell a Buffy story, and like Chris's art and like knowing some of Chris's personal history, just his growing up and the things he's had going on in his life, like it kind of all coalesced and poured out of me. So like it was never hard to do it after it got going, but it was hard to get to the place where it could start. If that makes sense, and that's kind of how all stories and books are for me. The one time it did get really hard was so just in terms of timeline. I wrote No Heroine #1 in May of 2018, and then also in May through July of 2018, I wrote Dead End Kids, and then I wrote the rest of No Heroine about a year later, after Dead End Kids was all out. So there's a big gap between the two, and I started writing No Heroine again in July of last year. So like right around the time I guess around the time Dead End Kids started coming out. And I was in Miami for SuperCon, and like I think it was on the night of the first day or the morning of the second day of the show. My one brother texted me and he said, "Hey, can I give you a call?" And he gave me a call, and he called me to tell me that my younger brother Joey had OD'd and died. Yeah, it's and I'm sitting there writing this book about addiction, and he's definitely a big influence for like the book itself. So that was rough. It threw me off for a little bit, but I think it also was the thing that kind of made the book click for me. Like I finally like had a reason to be writing the book, like for somebody. So like that fucked me up a little bit and threw me off a bit.
So, I mean, that's and yeah, that'll fuck anybody up, man. And I'm sorry that you had to go through that. And I mean, just knowing this story, I have such more of a deep appreciation for what you put into this. I mean, that's not easy to write. I mean, here I am writing sci-fi fantasy, right? I mean, and you do that too. I mean, you have your own takes on a lot of things, but I mean, to pour that element of, I don't have that. You know what I mean? Like, I have just a crazy mind. I don't have that. You know what I mean?
Good. You don't want
it. But the thing is, I sympathize with it. You know what I mean? It's just like I get it. I mean, I've seen it. I just haven't personally experienced it where. You know, I've had friends that have died. I've had more friends die from, like I was saying before, you know, and you know, God rest his soul, my friend Freddie, who died in a motorcycle accident. I had another friend die in a motorcycle accident. I have more friends die in auto accidents than anything else. I have friends that party and you know, whatever. But at the same time, I haven't experienced the loss of it, you know what I mean? Or the pain of that side. I've only seen, you know, the happy side of it, you know what I mean? Which there's a fun side to everything, right? But at the same time, it's one of those things where it's so dangerous that, you know, and I was doing, you know, a little more research. Over 1 million people in the United States do heroin. So I wanted to do a little research on the heroin subject. So we talk about no. I think heroin's more like hero, but no heroin.
Well, it's actually, so the book was originally called The Used, okay. which I never liked.
I love that band, by the way. Just to go back to the 90s.
Me too, which is why I didn't like the title. I didn't want it to like be a reference because like musically close to the music that the book influences, but not the same. But also, the story is about like how Kayla uses people and like how terrible she can be doing that. So like it always made sense, but I never liked it. And we got to this point where I was like, let's just focus on like the hero part of it. And so it's like a play on words. It's no heroin because she can't use drugs anymore. No more heroin. Mm-hmm. But also she's also like really bad at being a hero. So it's no heroin. And like once I get a title that's got like a double meaning, I'm never going to let go of it, no matter how corny it is.
I feel like you're one of the few people that would actually know how heroin, the name, was created. Do you know?
Which one?
Well, like the drug heroin, like in terms of like how they developed the name heroin.
I do not know that.
So this I'm like a Snapple bottle, so like it's a random facts. No, heroin was actually designed. It was supposed to be the drug that was supposed to cure addiction, and it was called the hero drug to cure addiction to drugs. And lo and behold, it was actually created by doctors to cure drug addiction, and then they created the most addictive drug.
I mean, that makes sense. Yeah. Like you think of like Game of Thrones, and they're always giving people milk of the poppy. Yeah, which is opioid liquid to it's like morphine essentially. So that makes sense.
But it's just crazy. I mean, it's crazy. I mean, first I didn't know all this, and I really appreciate you opening up and sharing that with not only us, but with me and whoever's the hell's listening to this. But I mean, honestly, that gives me a lot more respect for the work that you're doing, because it's not easy, man. That stuff is not easy, putting yourself out there in that way. It's not easy having to tap into that and write that and dive into that and constantly have that. I mean, from writing a book, I mean, sometimes, I mean, I know you said you wrote the first script on one plane ride, but that doesn't mean it stops there. You know what I mean?
No.
Like, you're attached to that project for a very long time, and you have to keep the constant reminder of going into. I mean, it kind of makes you wonder about people that wrote and created things that they're just like, I don't want to talk about it anymore. You know what I mean?
I mean, I totally like. There's a band, Brand New.
I love Brand New. I went to a concert. It's the only concert I ever got kicked out of.
But see, Lacey, the singer, he hates singing songs from their first album, which is the album that got them on people's radar. That and the second one, but he really doesn't like that first album. Like, he thinks he wasn't a good singer at the time. He doesn't think the music was very good. The lyrics are very amateur, but it's also what people want to hear all the time. Like I definitely go to a show and I'm like, I want to hear 70 times 7.
Yeah, 7 times 7. Okay, I Love You, but my Tommy gun don't.
Yeah.
I want to hear that stuff.
And I've seen them probably 15 or 20 times.
All right, you've hit super fan status, my man.
In over 20 years, so like since high school.
Mm-hmm.
But I think I've seen them play 70 times 7 once or twice, maybe twice. And so, like, yeah, I get it. Like,
have they come out with a new album? Last time the Jesus album. What was that? The
Deja Entendre?
No, Deja. No, it was Jesus Christ. It's a special.
It's a wolf on the cover. It's called Daisy.
It's a Daisy. Oh man, I gotta look it up. You got me looking it up, Frank. Brand new.
They did put out one recently. I think a year and a half ago. And it's cool because the little girl from the cover of the one album, where she's sitting on the porch or whatever, it's a little blonde girl. They got her for the cover of the new one, like 10, 15 years later.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, Deja Entendre was probably my favorite album of theirs, but The Devil and God are
Raging Inside of Me.
Yeah, are Raging Inside of Me. That's probably up there as well. I think that was the last album I really got into for Brand New. But I was a big Deja Entendre fan. In fact, that song I feel like doesn't get enough credit, Deja Entendre.
The opening riff, just a little, that's all. It's great. So it's a well produced album.
Yeah, my
favorite albums are the ones that are good top to bottom, not just the ones that have good songs. So I listen to a lot more concept music type stuff. Like, there's a band called Boys Night Out from Canada. They're not together anymore, but they have a concept album, which is, it's essentially each song is a story, or like a chapter of a story about this guy like night terrors and accidentally killing his girlfriend, and then like getting locked up and institutionalized, and then getting back. It's crazy.
I feel like I want to get a beer with you now, Frank. I feel like we need to go out to a bar and get a beer. I don't know if you drink or not, but I mean, you used to drink.
I want to write the adaptation of that album.
Yeah, that's another, like, so I started dabbling with, at least Josh did on my end. So Josh and I are kind of like a writing team. We do a lot of things together. We're doing more things separately now, but we're finishing a series right now. It's a 3-issue miniseries, but we're starting to dive into finding musicians to create like the music for these books, which I feel like is not going to go anywhere, but I personally just love doing it. We have a whole, like, for our Soul Survivor series that we've been slowly working on, we have an entire, like, for each character, like, a song. Like, it's all music, like, it's just all instrumental, but
multimedia merchandising is awesome. Like, once you can get to a place where you can start doing shit like that, like, it opens up so much more creative stuff.
Yeah. Like, I'm small time, man. I mean, I'm not I don't feel like I don't feel like I'm getting to a point where that's going to, like, it's more so just to create I get what you're saying, where it's like, yeah, when you can get to that point and you sell shit, absolutely.
Oh, it's not even about the selling shit, but like, these things cost money, right? Yeah. So if you can do a book that's like semi-successful and make some money rather than lose some money, like have a little more to play with, like you can do shit like t-shirts and pins on the merch side, or, do some kind of partnership on the next volume of something. I don't know. I'm just kind of talking out of my ass about
Speaking of next volumes, I know a lot of people, and I haven't got a chance to read 2 or 3 yet, but I love number 1. for Dead End Kids. Is there a rumor going around that Dead End Kids Volume 2 is coming?
It's not a rumor. Number 2 is coming.
Okay.
I finished writing the third script, final draft yesterday. First script is with Nanad getting drawn. We should have all the pencils done at the end of this week, so it's moving along. Like he's had script.
I'll never forget I forget what convention. I think it was Vegas. It was either Vegas or LA. It was one of the two that I went to, and you were there, or it might have been. No, I'm pretty sure it was Vegas. I think it was Vegas. Could be wrong, or it could have been Long Beach. I don't know. We see each other at a lot of conventions, and I hope to see you soon with all this shit going on in the world. But I'll never forget there was this guy that kept coming over with more and more Dead End Kid covers. He had the whole thing.
It was Long Beach.
Was that Long Beach?
Yeah.
And I'll never it was like 30 books that he just kept. He's like, I need you to sign this, and he just signed this, and he just signed this. I'm like, damn, Frank, you made it.
I mean, it's cool. It feels good. But then like you go home and you hop on eBay and like you see all your shit and people making like $50 off a book that you didn't even get paid for yet, and you're not going to get paid $50 for it. Like
dude, that's the crazy thing is I'm seeing that more and more. The Soul Survivor variant that we did at San Diego Comic-Con, people were reselling that for $50 online, and I'm like, somebody's gonna make more money off of my work than I made off of my work.
It's a weird ecosystem being in comic, but on the one hand, it's like it's free promo. Like today, Bleeding Cool ran an article about No Heroine and the variant selling really well on eBay, and it's like 3 days before the FOC on the book, and like it's definitely gonna get the book on more people's radars if they think they can sell more. Like retailers will think they can sell more copies. Scalpers or whatever they're called, speculators will think they can, make more money on copies. But it in the end, it helps you make more money. You won't make that much money. But
I mean, I feel like you do comics for the passion of it, and then if it gets to a point where like I think like you were kind of talking about like the higher medium stuff. I know you have stuff that you're interested in getting into. I think Dead End Kids would make a really good, whether it's a a mini series or a Netflix movie or whatever it may be, live action. I think that would do really good there. No Heroine, because of the seriousness of the content, I think would have to be like, I mean, an FX. I think FX would eat that up.
It feels like an FX or a sci-fi.
Yeah, I think that would be kind of cool. I don't think you could do regular cable with the seriousness. I mean, you had what's that show?
Class. On sci-fi,
but I mean, realistically speaking, man, I think like for that's the kind of the pipe dream, if you will. You pump out all this great content, you get some readers, you have fun doing it, you get to tour around, you get to you take it serious. Don't get me wrong, you want to sell as many books as you can. There's a business angle of it, but the idea is you just want to have people read your shit and enjoy it.
That's all that matters. Like I always tell Travis, our editor in chief. Like, I don't really give a shit how many of these we sell. Like, I don't care how much I get in royalties, which he always tries to turn into me not getting royalties, but it's not going to work, Travis. But I really don't care. Like, I have a day job. It pays for the books to get made. It keeps my lights on. Like, I don't need the comic book money. So that, on some level, I think that frees me up to make better stories or stories that I like better.
Yeah, I mean, you could look back. That's another thing I was saying to my girlfriend was like along the lines of like, I'll have something I could sell for the rest of my life. Yeah, I mean, like you can go. I'm going to make that money back eventually. You know what I mean? Like the money you put into the art, the time you put into it, and you'll always have.
It's long term. Like you don't make it back on day one. You don't make it back on day 30. You make it back on year 3, but then you're in the black forever.
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean and you also have fun doing it, man. I mean, some of the best time. I never thought I would have this much fun just sitting behind a table with a bunch of creators. You know what I mean? Like you look back on it, I've only been doing it for a couple of years. I think you and I got our start together actually at C2E2.
Yeah.
We've been doing it for the same amount of time, and you look back on it and you're just kind of like, I've been doing this now for 2-3 years, and I'm excited for the next show. I'm excited, and not even because I'm going to be selling my book, because I'm going to see some friends. And I think that's what SourcePoint really brings to the table is like that camaraderie, which I think is nice that we got to fall into. I think we fell in with a really good publisher. And I know it's weird being a creator because like, well, what if I want to write a book and this person picks it up, or this company picks it up, or that company picks it up? I'm pretty loyal to SourcePoint for the most part, just because of the friendships.
Good deal. They're really good to us. Like, I mean, and the atmosphere is like, you walk around New York Comic Con, you go to the Vault booth, you go to the Action Lab booth, you go to the Aftershock booth. Those are all great publishers. Two of them I would like to work with someday, even. But like, it's booth babes and money men run in the booth, and like they're just there to sell your product. Yeah, you go to the Source Point booth, you got the people who actually made the books, and they're there shaking your hand and like spending way too much time talking to you, like losing money because they're not selling the books. Instead, they're just talking to people and like making. Source Point doesn't make dollars; they make fans. Like that's always the thing I fall back on. Like, yeah, they make money obviously, but it's like, were you at the C2E2 after the one we started at?
No, I want to get back, man. I want to get back really bad, actually. So my girl's father lives in Chicago, and I want to get over there with her and cast over to Chicago. I want to do C2E2 again really bad. I'm hoping next year or the year after. I mean, we'll figure it out.
Like, I've done it. This is my third one, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that was my third one. And it's just every year it's better than the last. But the thing that I noticed, because I've done the show a few times now, is Source Point has like really loyal fans.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there are people who walk up and they're like, I haven't seen you in a year, so I here last year, I'm back. Give me one of everything you've put out since then.
Yep.
That don't even care what the pitch is.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and that's I don't know how to quantify that or like define that, but like that's something I don't know that a lot of other publishers
I've experienced that on my, not even with me, just with Source Point stuff. It's like, hey, like, I bought your book last year, whatever you got for Source Point as a whole, give it to me.
Yeah, and here's $100, like, make me a package. Like, it's crazy.
No, it's
blind faith.
You know what's another thing, Frank, that we actually have in common is I grew up loving the Power Rangers, and I think I see some back there, and
behind me.
No, I don't.
Well, down below me, there's a shelf with all the Boom stuff.
Okay.
On the other side of this is 20 or 30 action figures from the collection line from Hasbro. I'd say they're my big preoccupation right now. I've been watching every series since quarantine started. I think I've got 2 left out of 28.
Dude, I honestly, like, I kind of want to get back into it because I grew up on it, and I just feel like I don't. It's like one of those things where you just don't want to ruin it for yourself because, like, I loved it when I was a kid.
It's surprisingly insightful. I mean, you got to keep in mind it's a children's show. It's definitely like moral of the week, like kind of like not incredibly deep, but like. They're like, you know how Godzilla has certain eras of Godzilla, like there's the Showa era, and then it moved over to another production company. Yeah. Power Rangers has had a history like that in the US. So they were with Fox and Saban at first, and then they moved over to Disney, and then they were with and now they're with Nickelodeon, and like they've bounced around a few times, and like each era kind of is pretty distinct.
Yeah, they put their marketing and their flair on it, if you will. Completely good. Dude, I remember the first Power Rangers movie. Was it the Ooze movie? Or was it?
It's just called Power Rangers the movie, but it's got Ivan Ooze.
Ivan Ooze, yeah. I totally remember that movie, and that was some of my favorite. I mean, okay, so here's a crazy thing. I was on a plane coming back from, I forget what convention. Oh, it was Boise, I think. I think it was the Boise Comic Book Convention. And I'm sitting I'm in the middle of I'm sitting next to the guy who played Jason on the plane. And I'm just like, I'm nerding out at this point. I'm just like, this is the Red Ranger, the Green Ranger, like the White Ranger.
Yeah. I've got caught in a couple green rooms with some of the actors from like the more recent series who I didn't know who were until a couple years ago. But yeah, there are like 200 plus Power Rangers actors at this point.
It's kind of crazy. It's kind of crazy to think about it. I met I did a book for the one of the Yellow Rangers. I didn't write her book, but I printed her book when I worked at Kraken Print. God rest Kraken Print's soul. But it's crazy how many Power Rangers there are. But I mean, so what's your favorite? I mean, my favorite kind of just goes back to the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, the first group.
I think the first season where they changed costumes, the Zeo season, that was like holy shit, this is like gonna last forever. Like they're gonna find a way to make this go forever. And so far that's been true. But I just like, I don't know. There's something about, I also like that the villains were a little bit, they were just like these crazy robots, and it's a solid season. Um, I'm trying to think. There aren't a lot that I love, but I like them all. There's a season called Ninja Fury, where it's like animal based and kung fu based. That one's pretty cool. There's
Kind of
another
reminds
one
me of Transformers a little bit. Like a lot of people love Transformers. I was a huge fan of Transformers, but if you ask me what I'm a bigger fan of, which was Beast Wars.
I love Beast Wars. They're actually, just this is for you, not anyone else, but they are finally releasing a dub of Beast Wars 2 in English. The Japanese season that comes between seasons 1 and 2 or 2 and 3 that has like a different cast also on Earth. I don't know anything about it other than that I've wanted this for like 20 years.
The same way I feel about like Digimon. I mean, so this is kind of there's a lot of things, Frank, that we found out over the years that we actually have in common here.
Digimon is better than Pokemon.
Digimon is better than Pokemon. And personally, I think it's 10 times better. Like it's not even in the same ballpark better.
It's conservative. It's different animal. Literally different animals.
I agree. Definitely.
Yeah.
Okay, so but that also goes to like the first season of I'll never forget, and this is back in VHS days, bro. VHS days. I was watching Digimon, and we would have to I had baseball at the same time the Digimon episodes would air. So I have to take a recording VHS tape, and I'd pop that shit in the VHS player, and I'd record the Digimon episodes, and I did that for an entire baseball season. We somehow, our terrible team made it to the championship game for baseball, and I'm young, right? And the season finale of Digimon was the same day, and I'm like, I don't want to play. But I had to. I was first baseman. I'm like, all right, I gotta go play. So it's this battle between being an athlete and a nerd. It's my entire life. And I videotaped the finale on my VHS. And I come home from the game. We won the championship. I come over the game. I'm super excited. And the VHS, the tape got stuck and it was unraveling in the VHS. And I never got to watch the season finale to the first season of Digimon, and I was heartbroken until it came out on Netflix. And I'm like 10, 15 years older at that point.
Yeah, that was a couple years ago.
Yeah, I'm like, and I've got to watch it, and I'm like, I kind of want to rewatch it. And I watched like the first 2 episodes. I'm like, someday I'm just gonna have to have a kid to watch this with, because I can't do this right now.
Yeah, it takes time. I usually put stuff like that on as background noise, especially if I've seen it before. But like once you get past that like second season, the Entomon season, like it just turns into like super crazy dark show. And then when they get back into the real world and like the 4th season or the 4th part of the first season, just nuts. Those seasons are way too long.
The game, not even the game, the movie, the Digimon movie. I love the Digimon movie. It was like probably my favorite movie. Like as a kid, like I watched that thing where I have the VHS. Like I'm talking like VHS, man. Like who the hell still holds on to VHS? I have like an entire catalog of Digimon VHS at my dad's house back in New York, and it's just it's like one of those things. It was like I was a diehard Digimon. My buddy Sean Shinta and I were just diehard Digimon fans, and we never watched the Pokemon series that much, but we would collect the cards. We were just Pokemon collectors for the cards. We played the Game Boy game, but we were bigger Digimon guys.
Dude, I knew Digimon was awesome at 2 specific moments. When they killed Angemon at the end of the first 13 episodes. He didn't die, obviously, but there were like some consequences. And then when Greymon digivolves to Skull Greymon instead of Metal Greymon, and he's like all fucked up and evil and like hurting people.
Yeah.
It's dark.
Dude, they gave actual stakes to it. And then people died and there was some serious consequences. And I think that's what a lot of things... Honestly, I haven't felt that way about a cartoon since Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Which I am watching right now for the first time.
Ooh.
First episode. We got Animal... I was thinking about you there, because I'm watching Clone Wars too, and I'm like, man...
Did you just start Clone Wars?
I watched the first season when it was on, like, originally, and then, like, it was aired out of order, so it didn't make
Yeah.
any fucking sense.
Yep.
So now I'm watching it.
Okay,
Now I'm
so
watching.
I'm doing. So there's another show I'm starting up, which is Star Wars After Hours, which we're just gonna go through and blow through a bunch of Clone Wars reviews. Doing all this shit for fun. People want to watch it, great, whatever. But we're gonna go through rewatch Clone Wars. I watched every episode, and I think it fit. Like, I don't know if you're a prequelist. I feel like you might be a little bit.
Fine. I know that these make up for some of it, but
Dude,
I like them all.
it literally changes the prequels. It'll make in a good way too. It's like I hate retconning, I hate that kind of stuff, but it does it in a way that you actually appreciate it.
Sure.
And it does it in a way where it adds so much more depth to Anakin. I think Ahsoka was the character that Star Wars needed. Sorry, my dog.
More point of view character. Well, I've seen the Ahsoka Darth Vader fight too, like and like just knowing like
and Rebels.
Yeah, but like knowing all that goes into like that history, even not having seen it, like made that scene that much better.
Oh yeah, dude. I mean, Rebels is another thing. So once I was gonna say, once you get through Clone Wars, you go. And here's the thing: in great Star Wars fashion, I think a lot of people need to realize the animation in the first season of Clone Wars is pretty shitty. Okay, it's rough at best. You know what I mean? And then it gets better as it goes on, and then I think if you've watched any of the last season, it's like night and day from episode or season 1 to the final season 7. So you're in for a treat, man. I would love to talk to you when you're done. When you get to the Mortis arc, I would love to talk to you about the Mortis arc.
All right, we just finished. Like they win the planet in the movie, and there's a few episodes from random seasons where they're on the planet defending it, and then the Ahsoka shows up, and then she's like there for a little bit. So like first 6 hours of the whole series so far, like not even.
Yeah, get through the first season. It's just kind of like I don't know, like how many people watched Game of Thrones and they're just like, all right, man, I don't know if this is for me. And then they get to episode like 5 and they're just like, okay, this is for me.
Get past it. Listen, you got to give people time to build their story. You can't just, not everything's going to be fucking Chernobyl and be like awesome from the get-go.
Chernobyl's great. I watched that. What's crazy is I was actually living with my buddy who's from that area. And he experienced it as a kid growing up in that area. And I was actually living at his house when that came out. And we watched it together. And he was telling me exactly what it really was like and how crazy it was. And then he was talking to his buddies and I don't even know the language, to be honest with you. But I want to say Russian, but I think it was Ukrainian. But and he's like, they're all talking to each other about when they were kids going through this. It was crazy. But yeah, Chernobyl was one of those shows that was pretty great.
It was tight. It's tight. Just the 6 episodes.
Yeah,
like
it was in and out. You know, it's like, hey, we have a great story to tell. Let's get it done. Boom. And I think that's what there needs to be more of. And I think that's what Source Point's tapping into is like these small mini series. Great. They make a great trade. If people resonate with it and they want more and there's more story to tell, well, the author's going to give it to them. You know what I mean? But if not, it's just a great story to tell. And it's like, hey, you got a great story and it's done. You don't have to sign up for these 12, 14 issue, first arc stories, which I would love to write. Don't get me wrong, but it's just in today's day and age, I feel like it's impossible.
Well, you write it, but you write it as 3-4 issue miniseries rather than 12 issues.
Right. No, I mean the economics behind it.
Get that new number 1 and get a fresh wind behind it. That's why we did Dead End Kids 2 as a second arc. It's also a different cast, so it's not. It wouldn't have made sense.
It's different from the traditional like monthly. You know what I mean? Like you're getting this book monthly.
As a entertainment watching society, we're moving away from that. Like everything is bingeable now, and if you have to wait 4 years to read a whole story, you're gonna get bored. Like I just finished Black Science a few months ago when the run finished up, and I've been reading that for I think almost 5 years because they took a break between each arc. And like I'm jealous of people who can just pick it up and read it now. Now I can't even imagine being a manga reader. Like I was just seeing like one series is on like volume 93. Like that
it's too much. It's too much.
And
I love manga too. That's the thing. I'm a big manga fan. Like,
but it's really good. Yeah. But I'm not gonna read 93 volumes and then wait 10 more years for the next 93. Like that sucks.
Yeah, no, it's too much. It's way too much story. And that's like kind of how I felt with The Walking Dead. I'm like, all right, it was cool. It's a cool premise, but you got lost. That's how I felt about The Walking Dead. Like, got
Yeah, I got on the
lost.
Walking Dead. I got on the Walking Dead about a year and a half before it ended, so I was only reading it monthly for a few months, and like that was fine. Like I'm glad it ended because I probably would have fell off. And it's good storytelling. Like it's consequential. It's takes a lot of left turns you don't see. It's good storytelling, but I can't imagine reading 170 issues of something anymore.
That's what I'm saying.
Like
Like, I'm kind of past that, man. Like, I have the Star Wars books I was telling you before we started the show I was more so of a collection where I'm like, I love the art. I know Star Wars is going to be, I mean, Star Wars has value. So I'm like, I'm going to collect. I collected every single Star Wars book from episode. I'm talking about the new canon. Every single episode. Sorry, my girlfriend's cooking. I collected every single episode up until like literally this quarantine happened. And then I stopped. I'm like, all right, I gotta be smart about my money. I can't keep spending on stuff. So that's kind of where I'm at. But I feel like I'm not gonna go through and read every single book.
no, you got to read them when they're coming out.
Yeah.
Or like what I've been doing lately is like looking back at like some classic series, like modern classics. Like I'm reading Hellboy for the first time, and I'm reading Sandman for the first time. And those are like 60 and 75 issue runs, but I can go buy all those books.
Yeah, they're all. You know, you have the definitive ending. Like it's like, all right, this is the story. That's what I did with Spider-Man Ultimate, man. I read all the Spider-Man books.
I was reading Ultimate Spider-Man in 2006, and I read it through until the end of the series. But like, yeah, like I can't imagine have been reading it for those first 5 years when it started. Like it's just so long. And think it's not like Hellboy started in like 1992 or 1993 and just ended a couple of years ago. Like that's a long time, and it wasn't coming out regularly. It would come out like a mini series here, a big one shot here, some random short stories, and like Dark Horse Presents. Like just tracking all that down and shit. Like that's tough.
Super tough. And like I completely get it too. Like, but the thing is, like, that's what's crazy about the comic industry to me is like there's those people that do it.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Like they do it, and
invest.
Power to them, man. I mean, power to them, but it's tough. It's fucking tough. You better have a good comic book store with a good, like, a solid pull list option. You know what I mean? Like, keep it on the lookout for you.
I'm really particular about what I collect anymore. Like I still pull both the Power Ranger books. I pull a couple of Marvel characters, Hawkeye, Iron Fist, Black Panther, and then I'll read like mini series by people who I like I'll buy Grant Morrison stuff when he puts it out. Rick Remender. Like I don't pull a lot, but I do like have a full run of Fantastic Four, like number 1 through 650 or 65 or wherever they're at now, except for number 5. So like I still collect. I still like hunt and dig and buy on eBay and shit. But like it's very, very like you gotta be smart.
I just bought the entire. Well, here's the thing. I bought this because I know it's worth something, but also because I really want to read it. But I'm also pissed off because it never ended. So it's kind of like a double-edged sword. But I bought Battle Chasers.
It's never gonna end.
I know.
I've been once a month. Bleeding Cool will tell you that they're about to start it back up, and
that'll never happen. But I bought it, and I got it at, I forget which convention, and I have every single every single issue, and I'm going to read them. And have you held a comic from that time? Like, I'm talking about a 10, 15-year-old comic at this point. I mean, when was that came out? It came out 2000?
Yeah, probably. Like maybe 99.
Yeah, 20-year-old comic. Feeling a 20-year-old comic in your hand, you're like, I need to flip this page super safe.
Yeah.
You know
what? They're surprisingly cheap feeling, but they're pretty durable.
Right.
Like my comics from that period are probably in better shape than some of my modern comics. Modern comics, like, especially from some of the bigger publishers, I won't name names, but like they use cheaper ink and like something like that. But, like, I'll hold the book and like when I'm done reading, like DC. I'll have it.
Yeah, no, I feel you. Because they'll do like they'll do 65-pound pages.
Yeah,
I mean,
this is good. Source Point uses 80 or 70 and 80 covers.
They do 85, 70 on most of their stuff. So
and then on first issues they do heavier weight on the covers so that way they can be more mint for collectors.
Right. No, there's well, that's the thing. Like I got paired up with Source Point when I was working with, first I got paired off with when I handed them over some different books, but then I got integrated with them when I started working at Kraken. And then I learned all about the printing business, being the director of sales and marketing for Kraken Print. And that was going from being a sales manager for Verizon, and going to comic books was such a transition and such a difficult transition. Going from, it's one thing selling iPhones to another thing talking to a creator about his passion project that he's been working on for 6 years, that he wants to make sure it has a foil stamp and holographic this and a ribbon there, and he wants to print 4,000 copies and have this weight for these pages, and doesn't know how to put it together. You know what I mean?
On this budget.
Yeah, on this budget. And trying to accommodate that. And that's another thing that was super stressful. Is like, you're doing your best work, but it's just never going to make anybody happy.
Yeah, because they need somebody to blame when they didn't know better.
Oh, well, true. There's that aspect of it, and there's also the aspect of like time, where it's like this shit takes time, and there's going to be hiccups because your work it's a people to people business. You have people hand doing this, and if you want that quality, there's going to be hiccups. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's tough. It was tough. It was definitely an eye opener, and I'm still like, I don't know if you noticed, I got off social media for a long time because of it.
Take a break.
I took a break because I was honestly drained from it, and I was tired of having to deal with the negative aspect of a company that delivered, but being the face of that for so long. It was tough. It was really tough.
Yeah. No, I can't imagine.
But but back to the happy talks. You're watching Avatar: The Last Airbender, and
we were talking about printing. I just did my first sketch covers.
Yeah,
and they came in right before we started talking.
Let's see these. Let's see these.
Since I have them, but we did two. We did a white sketch cover for No Heroine, and we did a slightly rare black one.
Wow. Okay.
And the paperweight allows for colored pencils and like heavier inks, so you can do stuff with white. Looks pretty dope.
Dude, that's fantastic, man. And honestly, like, I love the fact that. So, how do you? Let me ask you this, because I feel like every creator is different, and I feel like with SourcePoint, it's kind of up to the creator. Are you the person pushing the narrative for variant covers and just getting them done, or how is that happening?
It's a mix. So on Dead End Kids, I had never done one before, so I kind of learned the ropes last year. And SourcePoint has really good relationships with a lot of retailers. There's a lot of retailers who do a lot of exclusives. So like Black Kid Comics in Maine was one of the first ones, and Hive Comics, which used to be Anomaly Comics, which is an online retailer. But I got to know those retailers.
Dude, Hive Comics, sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but Hive Comics just hit me up, and they bought a decent amount of. They wanted the old school Skyland Courant Comics books, and they're like, these are going to be worth something because it's all SourcePoint now. So they asked me for how much inventory I have left.
The Kickstarter ones, right?
Yeah, the Kickstarter books, and they're like, how much Kickstarter books do you have left? So they just placed an order with me through Hive Comics for those. So shout out to Hive Comics, man.
Yeah, no, Jonathan's a good guy. But yeah, doing it with Dead End Kids, I got to learn the ropes, and I got to meet a lot of artists and figure out how this all gets done. So now it's more, I have relationships with retailers, and I'll reach out to them and be like, hey, I know you did a cover for Dead End Kids. Would you be interested in doing one for this book? Here's what it's about. And then I also have people reaching out to me now saying, hey, I'd like to do a cover. And so I just kind of trickle everyone to Travis, and Travis approves or doesn't approve. There's like a threshold for when you're at too many covers. Like we did a lot of covers for Dead End Kids last year, and like, yeah, at some point like start losing rather than gaining. So it's a very measured approach. But I think we did 10 or 11 covers for No Heroine #1. We've got a few for No Heroine #2 coming, and they're all selling really well. Like Hive did a Peach Momoko cover. They did 500. It sold out like a month ago. So it's
I think he's got a good readership. Good.
Yeah. Well, he's got really loyal fans, and he also delivers really high quality products. They're doing a second Peach cover for No Heroine #2, and it's even better. He's committed to making good products and making them, accessible and working with good creators. So I like Jonathan a lot. But yeah, so like for the most part, it's me at this point. The sketch covers were something I decided to do. I know that a lot of artists are struggling right now, and since the book is doing pretty well, all things considered, I figured if they could get some sketches or some commissions for using the book, the name on the
Dude,
cover.
I feel like a lot of people don't realize what a sketch cover is for as well. Like I feel like there's a lot of people like, what the hell? I got this. I got the Star Wars #1 sketch cover, and that was the first Star Wars book I bought when I started my collection, and it still hasn't been drawn on. And I feel like someday, like, you know what I mean?
Well, you're gonna meet John Cassaday or one of the other artists, and get some, or just find George Lucas and have him duel Jar Jar Binks. Who gives a shit?
Do you know how old George Lucas is right now?
He's got to be in his 80s.
Let's take a guess. How old?
84.
Let's see.
79 at the youngest.
76.
Really?
76.
He's got a lot more miles on those wheels. He has not aged gracefully.
Yeah, did you watch the documentary about the creating of Mandalorian?
I think I saw a little bit of it after we finished the series. He was a good-looking younger man. Like, he was fit, and he was obviously a successful person. I don't know what happened to him.
He just became more successful, and he's like, I don't gotta fucking do weights or lift or do anything.
I've got a vendetta with him, though. So here in San Francisco, he's got a campus, like a collection of buildings on one property, and I don't even know why he built it, but on the campus is his personal theater, like, that he uses to watch movies and like have parties and premieres and stuff. And my father-in-law's building, the office he works in, is in the campus, and they're allowed to use every inch of that campus for whatever they want except that theater. And I just want to go in that theater and watch a movie. I want to go to George Lucas's theater and watch Star Wars.
I mean,
it's a cool campus.
I would love to go to Skywalker Ranch. I think that's probably on my bucket list. I think my writing career, I would love it to lead to writing something in Star Wars. Whether it's even just a fucking, I'll write something about porgs. I don't give a shit.
Yeah,
that's my goal. Just to have that one moment where I got a chance to write something that's canon in Star Wars.
Yeah, and then I just one page. That's all I want. One page of Buffy, one page of Power Rangers. If I get more, great. But let me do a little. Let me leave my fingerprints on it.
And that's what I think it comes down to, is like, you have these passion projects where it's like, I'll do it for free. You know what I mean? I'll write Star Wars. With Firefly, we were talking about earlier, that was the direction I went with Soul Survivor was, when Firefly ended with Joss Whedon and they screwed him royally. I mean, that would probably be still running today, maybe, because I feel like it ran
for a while.
It would have gone on for many seasons, I guarantee it.
Yeah, well, they had. I mean, look at all they put into the movie. Like, that was a whole season's worth of crap that they just had.
And there was like killing Walsh and all that stuff, but the graphic novels, the comic books are really good.
I've read a few of those. The prostitute, what's her name? They have a series for her.
I can't think of her name. Aurora? No, it's
Aura. Some of the A.
I don't know, but off the top of my head, I can't think. I'm also, by the way, it's gonna become a thing, I think, on the show. I'm gonna have to kill a bottle of wine with every contestant. I think I'm just gonna drink an entire bottle of wine and just ask whatever the fuck I want to ask. Because we're gonna go with the show. Drinking with Fred. I think we're gonna have to rename it.
That's how you'll get to be the next Joe Rogan. You got to ask tough questions.
You've answered some pretty good ones, to be honest with you. So I'm pretty impressed.
I'm an open book. Let me ask you some questions.
All right, go for it.
When are we going to see Soul Survivor 3?
So how about Soul Survivor 2? So the artist he's very adamant about wanting to have the whole thing done before we release the next issue. He's also super detailed on it, whereas the point where it's like it's more of a passion project for him. So he's like, we're gonna go at my pace. I'm gonna do the art. And honestly, I wouldn't be able to afford him otherwise without just being like,
oh yeah, a page or two a month,
right? So he's more along the lines of like, hey, I'm gonna get this done. I'm gonna do this, but I'm gonna do it on my time. And once it's all done, then you release it. And he's been holding true to it. But we have a lot of other books that we got in the works I'm really, really excited for too.
What's the next book in the Skyland series? Not Skyland, spin-off book.
Xander.
Right. Oh, you did that already.
Yeah, well, it's done. It just hasn't been released yet. Nobody's seen it. So we tried to do an indie. I've never done Indiegogo in my life, and I'm like, I don't think I want to. And then somebody from Indiegogo reached out to me and asked, hey, we're trying to open up our comic books, more, and trying to get more people to do it. I'm like, all right, I have one book I'll try, and I had no idea what the fuck I was doing with Indiegogo, so it didn't go very far, and we just were like, we're gonna axe this. So, but it's actually slated to come out through SourcePoint. It's getting lettered right now. All the art's done, so we're pretty excited about that.
Nice. And what is that dog's name? I feel like he's getting more screen time than me.
Yeah, the dog is getting a lot of screen time. Name is Sparrow.
Sparrow. Mm-hmm. Is that a reference to something?
Captain Jack Sparrow. So he has two. His eyes are black. He kind of looks like a pirate. So yeah, Captain Jack Sparrow.
There's only one Captain Jack, and it's Captain Jack Harkness from Doctor Who. You need to go get educated.
My cousin's a huge Doctor Who fan. In fact, she does prosthetics and like makeup, and she's probably, if she ever gets, people from LA have asked her to come out to LA to do stuff for movies. She's just scared to take the jump, but she's fucking good, man. But she did a Doctor Who like monster type thing. I don't know exactly what it was because I never watched Doctor Who, but I keep hearing I should.
Time in the world right now, man.
Yeah.
There's only 12 seasons. You can make it. They're like 10 episodes.
How many Doctors are there?
In the new series, like since it got like brought back in 2005, I think they're on the fifth one or fourth.
Good.
Yeah, but it keeps it fresh. It's like a built-in reboot.
Right.
That's part of the concept, so people don't get pissed off about it. Smart.
Fair enough.
It also makes it easy to keep it going forever because once somebody's out, you just bring somebody else in.
All right, so here's my question for you, and then we'll kind of wrap it up here. A couple questions. I'm going to ask. I have no idea how many yet, but I'm going to ask a couple. If you could write in one IP, so one intellectual property, what would it be? You can only pick one.
Good one. Power Rangers. It's the only one. I think about it every single day, so it's got to be the one.
So were you just like a kid that was obsessed with it, that just kind of grew up with it, or like this is part of me?
I watched the original series when it was on in the early 90s, and I probably watched through the In Space season, which was the 6th season, sort of end of like the first big 6-season arc. And then I got older and was doing other things, I guess, in the early 2000s. But when the comics came back out, starting like 2016, when Boom started putting the books back out, like I really got into the books because it was like a nice hit of nostalgia, but also like way better storytelling, more adult.
Is it that was gonna be my follow-up question. Is it darker? Is it more
mature? It's darker. It's still aspirational, but it's mature. Like there's like arcs for the characters, and like, you know, they deal with like a lot of comic booky stuff that you would have never saw on the show, like secret organizations and like, you know, evil doppelganger characters and stuff like that. Like they really take it to a lot of really cool spots. So like once I started reading that, like I would watch the early seasons like while I worked out, and like, you know, I just kind of kept going with it. And the books are awesome, and I don't want to say this to you because I feel like it's you're just not going to believe me, but I would say that Star Wars, Power Rangers have about the same amount of mythology if you watch all of it. Like, and it's the perfect blend of science fiction and mysticism, just like Star Wars.
Because as you know, I'm a huge Star Wars fan. I mean, I wouldn't disagree with that because I feel like with Power Rangers, when I was into it, the thing is, I lost track of Power Rangers just like I lost track of Ninja Turtles, which I'd love to get back into someday. But at the same time, like, I feel like it's there because I remember as a kid that's what made me love it more.
Yeah, well, it's hokey and it's a children's show, but I mean they've got their own version of the Force called the Morphin Grid, and it's just, you know, where they draw their power from, just like a Jedi. They just get cool costumes instead.
Okay.
And robots. It's a fucking robot show.
So how the hell do we get you to write some
Power Rangers? I keep putting out books and I keep cultivating my network. I have been emailing with the Power Rangers editor for almost 2 years now. So like it's not like I'm not on their radar. And when I was at the Rango Awards last year, I went up to Ross Ritchie, the president of Boom, to introduce myself. and we were talking, and this was right after I got my Ringo nom, and I said, "Hey Ross, Frank Gogol, I'm a big fan of what you guys do with Boom," and he stopped me kind of mid sentence. He's like, "You wrote Dead End Kids, right?" I was like, "Yes." He's like, "You got a lot of fans in editorial. Keep it up." So like, yeah, just gonna keep working towards the
Dude,
goal.
I'm super happy for him, man. That's great. And honestly, like from a creative, like I feel like when I first got into this, I was very much the opposite, where I'm just like very focused on my story, my thing, me. And I feel like I grew to a point where I'm just like, I just want to tell stories, and then my friends tell stories, and then like people read these stories, and like, and I'm just happy for everybody else's success, man. So it's really good.
So much less serious than people take it. Like it is. It's not hard to get published. That's a fucking lie. Like it's all about making a good product and talking to people. Like if you can talk to people and you have something good to show them, you can get published.
If you have a good product, honestly, like I pitched something to Travis today, and if I had to put all my money on one project, it would probably be the books that are going to be coming out next year, most likely, which is this Irish fantasy story. It's a 3-issue miniseries. Let me just give you the presents, and you tell me what you think about it. It's about a girl who is trying to track down a banshee to save her father's life.
Is that based on an Irish myth at all?
So this is the crazy thing. So my family is one of 5 families. Okay, my family's from County Cork, Ireland. I'm half Irish, half Italian. Well, half Sicilian, and my family on the Irish side is from a town called County Cork, and there's 5 families that are plagued by a banshee, and my family is one of them. So I thought it would be a really good tribute to. I wanted to do this for my grandmother, and my Aunt Lauren, and my different like family members are very much into the Irish side of our family, and I wrote this book for them and then for our heritage, and it's a story about the myth about a banshee is basically you can get one wish if you find the banshee. But if you hear a banshee's wail, that means somebody's going to die in your family. If you see the banshee, that means you're going to die. So that's like the mythos of the banshee. So this girl's father protects her when the banshee comes up, and essentially he sees the banshee, she hears the scream, knows that he's going to die, and she's like this 10-year-old girl, and she goes off on a quest to find the banshee, because if you find a banshee, you're granted one wish.
So Corinne Roberts, doing bug bites. Get her on art, and you got it. You got it, number 1.
I have the artist. No, the first issue's done.
Oh, perfect.
So I pitched it to Travis. I showed him probably, I think it was maybe like 6 pages. It hasn't been colored yet, but just the inks. And he's just like, this looks really good. So I'm excited. But what's your next project, man? So you got Dead End Kids, you got No Heroine. What's next? What's next for Frank Gogol?
Dead End Kids Dead End Kids Volume 2 just went off the art 2 weeks ago, so we're about a third of the way done with the first issue. I'm writing the 4th issue starting tomorrow. I already wrote it, but I'm revising it tomorrow, and that'll probably take about a week, and then I'll be done writing it. So Dead End Kids 2 will probably come out over the winter, maybe early spring next year, depending on how things reshuffle. It's supposed to start coming out in November, so we'll see. After that, I'm writing a book called Afterbirth, which is my sci-fi Power Rangers alien book, which is not Power Rangers and Alien anymore, but it's about a team of explorers, kind of Fantastic Four in a weird way. They're on a mission to get a super fuel to bring back to Earth because we've destroyed the Earth and we have like no power, electric, nuclear, anything left, and they have this like miracle fuel they can bring back, but they stop to refuel on an abandoned planet on the way back and run into some aliens, and shit gets bad from there. I'm excited about that one.
I mean, sounds great. Sounds right up my alley, so I'll definitely read it.
I haven't written it yet, so I haven't gotten the pitch down.
Dude, it's all about the pitch, right? It's like, what can I say in 30 seconds that's going to get somebody to buy this book? But
yeah, it's going to be like little Halo, little Power Rangers, little Voltron, little Godzilla even.
You had me at Voltron, Frank. You had me at Voltron. But let me ask you this. Where can people find you? Where can people buy your stuff? And what do you want to tell people about you right now?
I'm on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Everything's just /Frank Gogol, one word. It's my handles. It's my Facebook. I don't care if people shoot me friend requests on Facebook as long as there's not like a swastika in their profile picture. I'm pretty good. I like to connect and engage with people. I think audience building is super important. So I'm fine with that. I also do a newsletter that comes out twice a month called Caption Boxes. That's my preferred way for people to keep up with me because there's no algorithms. It's just direct to you. And it's got everything. And we do exclusive covers for collectors. And we were talking about No Heroine in there about a year ago, like way in advance. So if you want like a look inside the process and like really, really advanced looks at things, I think we've been talking about Dead End Kids in there for about a year too. That's the way to do it. And I can get you a link for that, but it's at the top of my Twitter and everything too. So that's that.
Send it to me. I'll put it in the description of the video.
Do that. Where can people buy my shit? Grief is getting a second printing. Not sure when anymore. It was going to be in July of this year, but things are shuffling around a little bit. But it'll probably be by the end of this year. I also have some copies of the original printing that I've been storing away, so people can reach out to me if they really, really want one and can't wait. Dead End Kids Trade just came out. You can get it through your comic shop or sourcepointpress.com. And No Heroine for the people who see this before Friday, which is 3 days from now. You can still pre-order it, or the trade will be out in like 6 months.
Perfect, man. Well, I appreciate you coming on the show. I hope you had fun. It was great talking comics, nerd shit, everything with you. So
much more interesting than everybody else at SourcePoint Press. So much more interesting. You have the perfect interests. I would do this every day.
I appreciate that. If you need anything, man, reach out. I'm definitely going to have you back on the show again in the future. I look forward to conventions happening. We need to link up, have a beer in person. But I wish you all the best, Frank, and thank you for coming on, my man.
Yeah, dude. Stay safe.
You too, buddy.